Next up, we've got an exciting speaker, Inga, who is the founder and CEO of Inga Atelier, and they are an incredible luxury leather goods producer in South Africa. So incredible that we've found a video that can introduce the man himself. Turn your heads on your screen and watch this.
My name is Inga. My business is called Inga Atelier. We design and produce luxury leather goods. I started this business because I wanted South Africa to have the luxury brand that they can be proud of. We've seen the Italians and the French, they all have their own luxury brands that are dominating the space and the world. And I started this business so that South Africa and the continent can actually have a luxury leather goods brand that we can all be proud of. Quite frankly, I never knew that I'll be an entrepreneur, but when I look back, I had some signs of entrepreneurship in me. For instance, in school, I used to sell stuff, sweets and all of that kind of stuff to other students. So I think it's always been in me. It's just that I didn't know it at the time. But fast forward, I never saw myself doing anything else but what I do. I've always seen myself as someone who's going to run their own label or their own brand. So it's always been in me actually since varsity. So I knew very well after uni that I do not want to work for anybody. My dream is to start my own brand. I just didn't know what brand I wanted to start, because what I studied is, it's quite vast. You can be a furniture designer, you can be an interior designer, you can be a fashion designer. So I was not sure which direction to take at the time. The key considerations when you have a product and trying to identify a market is, number one, you need to design for the market, like positioning the product for the market. So in my case, I believe that I can't just design something cool that doesn't have a market or that is not retail viable. So it's very important to design things that are retail viable. There's also another factor that comes to play. If someone purchases a bag, the chances are that client will only purchase the bag once in a while, meaning probably once in, let's just say, in 2 years or 3 years. So the reason why it's like that, the nature of the people who buy bags are people who collect bags or they love bags. So meaning that they have all the other luxury bags, your Louis Vuittons, your Chanels and whatever, and they wanted like an Inga Atelier as part of their collection. So that means that they need to shop other bags because they've already bought ours and they will come back again like in a few years later. So that's what we encountered in the country. The rate of a returning customer was very long. Not unless someone is looking for a gift to buy a friend or whatever the case like that. But other than that, like the return rate, the returning customer rate was very long. That's what we found. As a result, we needed to look into the other markets, like bigger markets. That's why we looked at the US market. The biggest challenge is, for instance, operating in the US. First of all, we're not a priority. You must remember there's designers in the US who are as good as we are, who are also black. So the angle that we took, like it was the black excellence, which is quite big in the US right now. It's a big conversation, like, people rocking black-owned brands and all of that. Now, the biggest challenge for me in terms of marketing, people want to meet this designer, and I can't exactly travel much, like to some of the events that are taking place outside because I need to manage the production at my factory, I need to manage the quality, I need to be a bit involved in that side of things. So that's been one of the biggest challenge. And another challenge is it's a bit tricky as an African brand, coming from South Africa to the US and saying that, please wear this, I'm from Africa or South Africa, this is good quality, because the Americans also know quality. They produce quality, they've got quality. If you look at the likes of Coach, if you look at a few brands that they have in the US, like they understand quality. So it's a bit tricky in that regard, but it's a growing thing, we're getting there. Quite frankly, marketing is a very tricky thing, yet the most important thing. If people don't know about your beautiful products or your beautiful brand, it's it's just as dead because your product needs to get to the hands of the people, one way or the other. Now, the biggest thing is online, which is, made things easier for us as entrepreneurs to actually market the products. For instance, if you do like Instagram promotion, let's just say you boost a post for 1,000 rands, the conversion rate is not so bad, like in that regard. We've learned that with us, like in the US as well, which is, we use that quite often as well. I think digital marketing is definitely the way to go. I think your traditional billboards, your traditional magazine marketing and all of that, I think it has ran its course and its time. I don't think it no longer works because people live like online right now. But it needs to be done right at the same time. It's a big conversation, and that's where the direction is, but it needs to be done right. Another good way that we are exploring right now, we're doing like collaborations with some influencers, like who co-design a bag like with an influencer, and we share like the profit margins, like of the actual item. There, what's very important is that the influencer needs to resonate with your brand. They need to be compatible and relatable with your brand. You can find an influencer with 1 million followers, but out of that 1 million followers, what is the true buying power of that following, which is a very important thing. So it's things that we have to look at. So even influencer marketing, if it's done right, like with a right, influencer, I think it's a very good platform and a good way to market. A good example of what worked actually. If you look at what Batu did with Somizi, that was a fantastic collaboration. That definitely changed everything for Batu because the market was resonating with the brand and the brand was resonating with the influencer, and the influencer has the right buying power, like to influence, like their following to actually purchase a Batu shoe. So it's just an example. So those are some of the important things that I think are becoming big right now. The future of Inga Atelier, it looks very good. Like I said, we're penetrating the international market at the moment, and as part of our strategy. So in the next 5 years, we want to roll out a plan, to go far east, in Japan, in particular, and we want to sort of like penetrate that market. I mean, they have a lot of young millionaires who are big on luxury, who've got very appetite when it comes to luxury. So we need to get in there, as soon as possible into that market, because they've got the money, and they're young and, they're hype, so it's the right space to be in. If you look, for instance, at Paul Smith, they only have one shop in London, but they have about 3, in Japan alone. Louis Vuitton, same thing, they only have like a few in Paris, but they have like 4 in Japan, so it shows you that there's a big appetite for luxury, and it's actually a very good space to get into, using the angle of African luxury, because we as Africans, we often mistaken of products that are badly finished, they don't look good, like that are roughly made and all of that, but we don't have like products that are considered luxury by the world, so it's about time that we design and make products that compete on a global scale with all the other luxury brands on quality, on values, on good brand, on good story, on everything that the other luxury brands compete on. And it's about time we as Africans get into that market and compete on all those aspects. Hello, my name is Inga Kubeka. I'm from a very, very small village in the Eastern Cape. Very tiny. I'm sure like a lot of you don't even know it actually. It's close to Umtata, which is where former Nelson Mandela comes from. It's about 25 minutes to 30 minutes away from Umtata. Growing up, I grew up with limited things, to do as a child, but it was fun because we were making wire cars, we were playing with clay, making like cows, like using clay. And that on its own is actually a form of art, which then I did not know. I didn't have a TV at my house, so basically my day would end at 6. Then I'm back at home. Then there's absolutely nothing to do throughout until I go to bed. We didn't have internet, obviously, at that time. We didn't have phones at that time. We didn't have laptops or iPads or anything like that, which gave me like a creative edge and a lot to think about as to what I need to do the following day. So I had a lot of time to think. Can you imagine you just sitting there as a child, you don't have anything to play with. The only thing you have is your thoughts and what you have to do tomorrow. What are you going to play tomorrow? Are you going to the river to go swim? Are we going to play with clay? Are we going to finish the car that I started building, and so forth? So that's basically how I grew up. Raised by my grandmother, who was an academic, and a teacher. So she encouraged us, like in the evenings to read, but I wasn't really interested in reading, quite frankly. I was more like into anything that requires me to use my hands. I then had an opportunity to move to Durban to go stay with my grandfather when I was age 14. When I got there, I was exposed to television. I was exposed to a lot of other activities and things that I can possibly do. When I got to Durban, I got intrigued by a show called Top Billing. I remember very well there was a slot there called DIY with Aiden Bennett on Top Billing slot. I remember very well they used to do furniture on the spot, or build like a celebrity's wardrobe or shelves or whatever. So they were like DIY guys. So when I watched the show, I was like, wow, this is incredible. Actually, I like this, I wonder what is it that they studied these people to become what they do. Then I asked my grandfather. He told me that it's art-related stuff. Then I did some research about it. Then I found out that it's actually what we call interior design. So being in high school, I was in high school with an aim of being a designer. By the age of 15, I already knew exactly what I wanted to do. I was not thinking of becoming a lawyer. I was not thinking of becoming a doctor. I was not interested in any of that stuff. I simply wanted to do what those guys to do, or similarly to what they do. It's just that I didn't really have the in-depth understanding of what is it exactly that they do. Fast forward, I now finish matric. After matric, I applied to study for Arts and Foundation in design, because my portfolio was not that powerful, because I was not at an art school. After that, I applied at DUT, Durban University of Technology, to do the Arts and Design Foundation. That's when I got exposed to all different types of design, from interior design, industrial design, graphic design, surface design, textile design, architecture, and all of that. So I had to choose which one I wanted to study. I decided that I want to study industrial design. I then applied in Cape Town. Then I went to go study in Cape Town because they didn't have the course in Durban. When I got to Cape Town, I got exposed to a lot of things, to furniture design, to product design, to manufacturing, to clothing design, and so forth. When I finished studying, I went to go do a training at a place called Fentech. They specialize in furniture. That is when I started my first brand called Indalo Decor, which was specializing in furniture, We were doing tables, we were doing stools, we were doing like iPad covers, we were doing like iPad stands, and all that kind of stuff. While I was at Fantech, I stumbled upon this wooden like shell that's shaped like very oval. And I was thinking to myself, what can this be? It looks so beautiful, but what can it possibly be? I took it, I played around with it, looked at it, I tried cutting it, like just playing around with it, like to see what can it be. It potentially could be a beautiful object that I can include in my range. After that, I played around with it and I was like to myself, why isn't there no wooden bags? But there are wooden sunglasses, there are wooden shades, there's all sorts of wooden products that are being made by designers, but there's no wooden bags. That is when I came across the idea of a wooden bag. I developed it further for about 2 more months, bought some leather, played around with it, and then it took form. It became a bag. Then the shift moved from just being a furniture brand to now inclusion of wooden bags. I remember there was a fashion week that was going to be coming to Cape Town called the Cape Town Fashion Week. I went to go see a guy called Brian, who was then the CEO of the Cape Town Fashion Council, to show him this idea that I have. He said to me, oh my God, this is such a beautiful product. I've never seen wooden bags. Matter of fact, I'm going to put you on the list of the people to showcase at the Cape Town Fashion Week. And I'd never showcased at the Cape Town Fashion Week. From there, I showcased at the Cape Town Fashion Week. That's when the brand blew, because everyone was blown away by this concept of a wooden bag. It was the most talked about product. It was the most written about product by the media at the time, from GQ magazine to Elle magazine to Sowetan to all publications that were covering the event. They all wrote about this beautiful bag. That's when I got into the bags business to begin with. That was amazing. Now I had a bigger problem at my hand. How then do I price these products? How then do I scale up this product for retail? Because it's a very concentrated, handcrafted product. Looks beautiful, but it takes time to make. So now I needed to research ideas, as to how can we make this product a bit quicker and still maintaining the high quality of the actual product. I was forced to hire a person. Now I don't know how to hire, how much, to pay a person as my assistant who's helping me do this, because now I can no longer be a one-man show. And orders are coming. I just can't produce. I hired this person and we worked well with that person. Now I'm forced now to be an entrepreneur or a business person. And I know nothing about business. I'm a designer. I took a short course in business of about 6 months, which went very well. That gave me like an idea of how to actually, run a business, the basics, like costing, income and expenditure statements, all those kind of things, all the basics, like just to understand the business running of things, which was really, really amazing. From there was a big exhibition called the Design Indaba, even bigger than the Cape Town Fashion Week. I showcased there. The brand blew even bigger. So we were not now able to fulfill the market. The demand was there. But this is now a two-man show type of a business. We are unable to scale up and produce to the best of the ability and the level in which we can now fulfill all our clientele. To give an idea, it took us about give or take 5 bags to make per day out of 2 of us, which is nothing, compared to the demand that we are having. I researched on how to best produce these items quicker and faster. From there, I got approached by some investors in Joburg to say, look, we can invest in your business, we can scale it up, we can bring in some manpower, we can introduce some new machinery. We introduced some new machinery, which was laser machines, CNC machines, and so forth, so that the cutting and all the other elements are done by machine, and the finish is done by a physical human being. While that was happening, I got invited to open a store at then called the Watershed, which is at the VNA, which has got a lot of tourists, like coming in and all of that. So now our production improved drastically. We're able to produce for the shop, we're able to produce for the market, and so forth. Fast forward, business is going well. I've got all the accolades. I'm on Forbes 30 under 30. I'm in all the magazines. Like there's whiskey named after me. I'm listed as one of the top designers in Africa by Elle magazine in the US. I'm on Forbes magazine in the US as well. Like everything is happening so fast. Unfortunately, I had a fallout with my investors and my business partners with the direction of the business, of where it should go. I felt like they were looking at it more like on the business side of things, but I also believe in creativity, because creativity and business, they go hand in hand. If there is no creativity within a business, then the business will reach like a point where it's stagnant because it lacks creativity. So the two go hand in hand, I believe. I then went through the toughest time of my life, whereby I had to resign from this baby that I had started. I didn't want to be part of it at all. I was heartbroken. I resigned and left the business. And that was my end with Inga. It was hurtful. Lost a lot of things. Lost my car. Didn't have a place to stay. It was just the darkest time of my life. Stayed for like a year or so. I didn't know what to do, at the time. I was still plotting my comeback, like to the design scene and the design space and entrepreneurship at large. Then I realized, no, we actually do not have a leather goods luxury brand in South Africa. And there's an influx of people and a big appetite for luxury. But we don't have our own. For instance, Louis Vuitton, they've got Goyard, they've got, France, they've got Louis Vuitton, they've got Goyard, they've got Bottega, they've got all sorts of luxury brands that come from France. The Americans, they've got Coach, they've got Ace of Spades, they've got all sorts of luxury leather goods. The Italians, they've got their own luxury leather goods, but we don't have an African leather goods brand that is luxury, that competes in quality and aesthetics with the bags from all the other countries. Then I researched, why is it that? Then I discovered that we've got a problem in South Africa, in fact, in Africa at large, of believing what Europeans or the rest of the world tell us what African design is. We can't define it ourselves, but they defined it for us. which is things that are not well made, they are rusty, they look, the colors look off, like a good example, if you look at what is called African prints, it looks terrible. It's not even ours. It came from Dutch. Some of it came from China and all of that. But we call it African print, and no one knows where in Africa it was designed. But it's called African print. So I wanted to change people's perception of what African design is and what African luxury is. I wanted to redefine it. I met an Italian guy called Hugo, who his father, they've got a background of manufacturing leather products that are very high-end. They are using Italian materials, for instance, leather, the fittings, the hardware on the bags, and so forth. And their workmanship dates back 3 generations. He's the 3rd generation of manufacturing high-end luxury bags. I said to him, look, I've got some crazy designs that I think, will be beautiful. And I need like your manufacturing aspect of things. He said to me, let's partner up. We partnered up. I came up with a brand called Inga Atelier, which is my name. Atelier is a studio or workshop in French. That is why you've got all these other brands overseas, they call their studios an atelier, or they call their brands Maison Margiela or Maison Louis Vuitton or whatever. So it's similar to that, except that it's a studio. I showcased at exhibition called the Sanlam Handmade. That was the first time everybody or anybody saw Inga Atelier. I only made about 15 bags spread across 4 designs. We sold all the bags on day 1 of the exhibition. The exhibition was a 3-day event. The following day, we were unable to sell because we've got only the products that we are showcasing. Otherwise, if we were to sell the products that we're showcasing, we won't have anything to exhibit. The bags did not even have a label, but people loved them anyway because they were beautifully handcrafted. They look aesthetically pleasing. They looked like quality. The materials used were world-class materials. That is when Inga Atelier was launched. Fast forward. Now I've got this range of luxury products. How then do I sell them to the people of South Africa? We built an online store, which I built myself because I didn't have the funds to hire someone to build it. I didn't have the funds to hire someone to do the photography for it. I didn't have the funds for anything, just pretty much. I asked some favors from people I knew. I got another friend of mine to build me a website. I've got another friend of mine to build me some sort of a shopping cart when you go online and when you shop on Facebook and Instagram. From there, my vision was to have a store in an area where all these other international luxury products have stores at. I was not looking at this brand as a South African brand. I was looking at it as a global brand's perspective. I then applied at Hyde Park Corner. Sure some of you would know it. It's a very high-end mall in Joburg. It's got your Burberry's, Luminance, Armani, all these sort of luxury brands. And I couldn't think of another place where I can position my shop so that it can compete with all the other international luxury brands. From there, the management of Hyde Park Mall looked at me, looked at my bags. They're like, "Standing, are these made in South Africa?" I was like, "Yes, absolutely." They could not believe it. Then they made me a deal. "Look, we can give you a store and charge you X amount of money, and you can showcase your products because we also believe in this product in as much as you believe in it." Bear in mind, when I approach them, I don't even have the money that they want. I'm just moving with faith, which is what being an entrepreneur is. I know I want that, but as to how I'm gonna get that, I don't know. I don't have an investor. I don't know, but I want to store in Hyde Park. Like sometimes when you're an entrepreneur, you just move with faith. You do things that you actually don't understand how you get to do them yourself. Then I started looking for money. I went to some friends of mine that have some money. I asked them, "Look, this is what I'm trying to do, and this is how I want to do it, and this is why I'm doing it." I've got two friends of mine to chip in the money that was required by Hyde Park. Now we needed to do like the shop fitting. I've got another friend of mine who referred me to his friend that there's this guy who's a friend of mine that I believe in. They gave me the money. I was able to do my shoplifting. I was able to do my stock. I was able to do the rent, which is they wanted 3 months plus deposit and all of that. Then the shop was finally opened. It was the first black-owned shop, by the way, in Hyde Park Corner. It was the first brand, local brand, to be in a prestigious mall like Hyde Park, which was really, really amazing. People were buying the product. Everything was going well. Everything was fantastic. It was time now to expand the business. We partnered up with Lorenzi. We had a shop at Nelson Mandela Square, just here in Sandton, which went very well until the lockdown. We had to close our Hyde Park store due to lockdown to try and minimize all the risks of. We didn't know what was happening during lockdown. We just had to minimize the risks and keep our costs down and very low as much as we possibly can. That opened up a new channel of our business. We saw an increase on our online sales, at least by 80%, which was really good because we have never performed the way we did online before lockdown. We then said to ourselves, "Okay, great. Now I've got this online boom that is happening. We now need to explore other international markets." We then looked into Europe. We're like, maybe it's not the right time to go into Europe. We looked into Asia. Maybe it's not the right time to go into Asia. Well, then maybe let's try the US because that's where the influence is. Everything else is influenced by what the US trends are to the rest of the world. But before we got into the US market, something was happening in South Africa. We realized that sales are dropping. Now we needed to investigate, why is it sales are dropping? Why is it that sales are dropping? It turns out that a bag is actually a novelty. It's not like a must-have, like something to wear, because it's either you're cold or you want to look a bit different. or it's stylish, it goes well with your pants. You know, it's a novelty item. Meaning, a person can only buy a bag once in 3 years or 2 years. It's not something that they can wear for a long time and buy another one and another one. So, meaning that if we've got this client who bought a bag, they won't be coming back anytime soon. The only time they might be coming back is when they're buying a friend a gift. Now, in a South African context, there's that 1% of the people who can afford luxury. Then you get that other one, the second segment, which is the aspiring market. They admire the brand, but they can't buy it because they can't afford it. They lack the buying power to buy it. Now, this problem that we had, it simply means that our biggest issue here is that we are running out of people to sell to in South Africa, while we're still waiting for the aspiring market to get to a level of affordability and buying power. And then now that means our business is gonna be stifled locally because we've ran out of people to sell to who actually have the buying power. That confirmed that we need to either exit the South African market altogether, or we do South African market and we do the US market. I then met up with some investors from the US and Dubai, because now we're trying to take this brand global. We're now exiting South African market completely altogether. We don't want to be in it. We want to focus on the bigger scale of things and focus in the US. I'll say this again. A lot of people think that a business is a one-man show thing. But in order for a business to grow, it needs to be owned by not just you, by other people for scaling up and growth. Rather get 5% of 10 billion than 100% of 100,000. So I sold some shares in my business to some international investors who have a team that knows how to run online in the US and get stuff into boutiques and all of that kind of stuff. That's when Inga Atelier went global. We registered the business in Dubai completely altogether, and we registered in the US so that it can operate in the US. We've got a warehouse in Florida. So everything gets made in South Africa, 100%. Then we ship it in a container to the US, and the operations, business operations, they run from Dubai. And in South Africa is the manufacturing, which is where I come in. I design and manufacture and overlook at holistic quality assuring, and the look and feel, and make sure that our products look good, and we're able to design collections every season, every 6 months, that is. So that is my title. I'm a creative director, and I overlook at the factory, and design and new ideas and new concepts. In the US market, we are doing very well. It is a great market, but we've only been there in 2 years. We are hoping to grow the US market, and at least by 2010, we at least have about 5 physical shops across the US before we start moving to Asia. Now, a lot of people may know this or may not know this. Asia is such a very important market when it comes to luxury because they've got the buying power. They've got more millennial millionaires, more than any other country, sorry, more than any other region in the world. So one will have to look into that market thorough and have a look at it, which is what we are eyeing as well in the next 5 to 10 years. We are looking at penetrating that market. I want to talk a little bit about my accolades, as an entrepreneur. After all these hardships, hurdles, you name it, I always say that entrepreneurship is not for the faint-hearted. You need to move with faith. When I say faith, you need to believe in what you're doing more than anybody else. Because if you believe in what you are doing, that means other people can believe in what you are doing too. But you can't convince other people that this brand is the brand of the future, this is it, if you don't believe in yourself or what you are doing or the product that you are doing. So it is very, very important to believe in it. I'm going to tell you a quick story of, which always comes, by the way, like that Inga Atelier was won by the president and so forth. So I was invited to speak in Switzerland at the World Economic Forum, WEF. I'm sure like a lot of you maybe have seen WEF. I think it happens in Jan of every year, where all the industry leaders, business people, bankers, banks, CEOs, top executives of all the companies actually gather. So I was invited there to come and speak on African entrepreneurship and African design. While I was speaking at WEF, I saw former Minister Tito Mboweni on the audience, and the Governor General Leseja Kganyago. When I was done speaking, some guys came to me like, we hear that you're from South Africa. Who are you with here? I'm like, yeah, I'm with WEF. Okay. How did you get here? I'm like, I was invited by WEF. They were so shocked. While I was still waiting for that, some people come to me. They say, hey, look, we're from South Africa. There's a big gala dinner that's happening. President will be there. It's for all the top executives of the JSE listed companies. That's the people that are going to be there. We want you to speak there. How did you get here anyway? So I try to explain to them, like, I got here through WEF. How come we don't know about you? I said, well, maybe, you didn't do your research. That's the only explanation I can give. So I go to another party, a Facebook party. There were some international people that I was networking with there. Then the next thing I know, I see guys from South Africa with their South African scarves. We're here to fetch you. You are speaking right now in the next 10 minutes with the president during this audience. I was like, okay, that's interesting. So I get there. Greet everyone, my name is Inga, Wadayara, do all the introduction and everything else. Then I thank the president, for inviting me to this gala dinner and all of that. Then I presented the president with the bag. That's how the story of the president actually ended up with an Inga Atelier bag. Just to close, the main vision here is to create what LVMH has done. They've got multiple luxury brands. I want to create an LVMH of South Africa. I currently have 2 brands. I've got Inga Atelier, then I've got Ascend Label, which is what I'm wearing, which is strictly fashion, high-end fashion. I've created a group called the Supreme Brands. Now, the Supreme Brands consist of Inga Atelier underneath it. It consists of Ascend Label. It consists of Nick, which is home decor accessories. Those are the only brands that I'm gonna do until I die. And those are the only brands that will make me a billionaire. I do not know how I'm gonna be a billionaire, but I do know that these are the brands that will take me to my billionaire status and create jobs while I'm at it. I'm very passionate about this country. I'm very proud of this country. I know the country is not doing very well at the moment. We are living in times whereby there's negativity all around this country. We hear things of corruption, we hear this, we hear that, you know. There's just negative things that are happening around this country, but I've got faith in this country. This country will be changed by people like you and I. Then the problems of this country are going to be solved by entrepreneurs. The problems of youth unemployment are not going to be solved by the government. They're going to be solved by us. Government doesn't create jobs, entrepreneurs do. However, it's the government's role to create a conducive environment for us to thrive, for us to be able to create jobs, for us to grow our GDP. I mean, just last week, we had shrink by 0.7%. It hurts from an entrepreneurship perspective. It hurts to see every day our youth in the townships are sitting at the corners and all of that. It hurts. In closing, you and I have a responsibility to grow this country, to believe in this country as an entrepreneur, to create jobs for this country, most importantly, to lift as you rise as an entrepreneur. It doesn't help for you to be the only one who's driving a Ferrari. You need to lift others to create jobs too, to be entrepreneurs too, to contribute to the GDP, to contribute to the taxman, to take this country further. This country doesn't belong to politicians, it belongs to us. That's my closing.
Inga, you've got a question that came through our virtual chat. The question says, very informed presentation, Mr. Inga. If I may ask, why is it that 95% of the businesses that start operating fail and only 5% succeed? Is it because of the pressure to succeed? Is there not enough financial support, or what are the issues that exist?
The number one issue that is a big problem in the country is funding. A lot of business fail because a lack of funding. A person can have a brilliant idea, but if they don't have the funds to execute that idea or that business, unfortunately, it will fail. But at the same time, just because you have funding, it doesn't mean that you'll have a successful business. It only increases your chances, but doesn't guarantee that you're going to be a successful business. Number 3, business requires resilience. Your mindset needs to operate on a different level altogether. If you are just in it for the money, when the money does not come, you'll get frustrated and give up and say, this thing doesn't work, I don't want to be in this thing. But if you believe in your vision and this thing that you're doing, your faith will keep you going even when the money is not coming. So your mindset contributes a lot to the success of your business. You need to have the right mindset for success. If you do not have it, you're going to have some problems. Thank you.